in terms of military strategy. What do you think was a weakness in that whole system? They were very efficient. Germans were very efficient. So what do you think was the weakness there? Yes, men. The whole system that he brought, the human system that was there, became a system of yes men. They had to be yes men. If you were a no man, you were out or, I don't know, shot or whatever. So that's the danger of a yes man or a yes woman, having them all the time. Yeah. Thank you very much. I come to the end. And my blog actually has more information on Scrum, but it explains a little more on various, what if you do this, what's going to be the bad effect, and how you can counter it. There's more information there. Yeah. All right, so if you have any questions, I'll take it. Otherwise, we end it. And I don't think Nitesh even thought I'll finish early. Yeah, any questions? Yeah. Scrum? Scrumban. Oh, so there's something called Kanban, which is basically used for fast-flowing, interrupt-driven work. So basically, if you do frontline support and so on. So if you do that, like for example, if you're in frontline support, you can't use Scrum because you can't have a time box of a week or 2 weeks and then set a target. So you do Kanban, which is you have a board in which you take items and you do that. Now, Kanban has got a lot of things, but the way we implement it in the software industry, that's what we do pretty much. And what we miss out are things like stand-ups and the retrospectives in Kanban. So we're just saying that it is Scrumban, so we'll say, okay, let's have a time box, not in terms of goals, but in terms of, okay, this is when we'll do a retrospective. This is how we'll do stand-ups, and that's about it. No, I don't. Because because this whole situation is different, and you're not pretending that you're doing Scrum, and you're not pretending that we are doing commitments and all that. That's not Scrum, but it's fine.
But you're not saying if you follow Agile, you have to follow Scrum. But you're saying
no, I'm not saying that. Yes. I'm not saying that. Actually, I have a problem with the word Agile simply because it's fine if you're talking to your grandmother and she asks, "What are you doing?" You can say, "Yeah, I'm doing something in computers," and that's fine. But among professionals who are looking at how to do things better, we have to be more particular and more clear about what we're doing. So people say Agile, and each person in their mind has an idea of Agile, and it's all different. It is okay for some people, like let's say ThoughtWorks. There's a company called ThoughtWorks. They really understand it. So they can say Agile, it's fine, but for the vast majority, you need to say, okay, I do Scrum, and a very common combination is Scrum and XP. But doing both together well is difficult, but it's totally worth it. It's completely worth it. Yeah. So, any other questions?
I have a question.
Oh, okay. Yes, I saw that hand first.
Okay, in the Agile world, one of the, so to say, principles is that working software is a true measure of progress.
Yeah.
So what other metrics do you kind of, have you followed or will you recommend, in terms of saying that the team has adopted this process well and
Okay, so what are the metrics? So look, simply in terms of metrics, I've even seen people give one-day course on Agile metrics. I think it's rubbish. So because the only metric that teams, at least the only one I can think of straight away, is this thing called velocity. It's about being able to plan beyond a sprint. So that's the only thing that's important. All other metrics come from not from Scrum or XP. They've been around, all right? So you can use those metrics, but this is a different topic really. You have to be careful about metrics. What you measure is sometimes what you get. So lines of code. If you measure programmer productivity by lines of code, well, they are going to churn out lines of code. But I'm not sure if I answered your question, but that's one metric. If you're talking about productivity in other ways, you can use the old metrics like function points. You can do that. Function points is a size metric, but you can relate it to number of people and time and get productivity.
You could do that. Yeah. Have I answered your question, or it's? We can take it offline if you want. Okay. So sorry.
The ties on both schedule and quality. Okay, let's not even talk
Okay.
about basic metrics,
Yeah.
slogs, all these things are fine.
Yeah.
But something that ties out schedule and quality, because you're talking about Scrum where there is an iterative software development.
Yeah.
You foster that kind of an environment.
Yeah, right.
So how things are not very clear from the start.
Right.
So how do you know what you want at the end?
Okay.
So from a schedule and quality perspective, what is a good one?
So let me answer the quality thing first. So that's a very good question, and that's one thing I have not spoken about at all. Yeah, and in fact, most of the agile people, they say that quality is the most important thing and so on. So I just took it as a given. So there's something called definition of done. When you say that you're going to deliver something in the end, there's a definition of done. Let's look at, yeah, done. So over here, when you're inspecting it, you measure your quality at that point. Now, you can measure quality at that point in whatever way you want related to that project. So it could include lack of bugs. It could include things like code coverage. So it could include things like number of test cases, or so we are assuming all test cases just pass. It could include usability. So depending on the project, you'll have a definition of done and you measure at that point. Now the thing with bugs, unfortunately, is you can measure here, but you'll find the bug 2 months later. So then you can do the same metrics program that you have been doing earlier. So that's what you do. But in terms of every sprint, you want it to be clean cut. At the end of the sprint, you want ideally this to be clean cut and done, and the next sprint should be something new. It could be on top of this feature, but it has to be something new, ideally.
So first class yield could be a good metric for every sprint.
First class, okay, you're talking about defect metrics now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It could be, yeah, it is. But then that is applicable across sprints.
Okay.
Yeah, so that makes sense. Now the second thing, you're talking about schedule. So I'm not sure what your question is,
See,
because
like this.
time just passes, right? You can't do anything about
I'll
it.
tell you what is the problem. We say we are done.
Yeah.
Our schedule performance is excellent. But then we always have this defects that keep coming out every now and then,
Yeah.
2 months later.
Yeah.
So we have that, it's a curve that goes in
Yeah.
a normal curve kind of a fashion.
Yeah.
So you're never done. You have the tail always.
Okay, so Scrum itself doesn't say anything, but for this kind of thing, you need to really look into extreme programming. Scrum is still this framework. It's very powerful, it's very deep, like I'm saying, precedence and systems thinking and all that. But if you really want software of high quality, you need to look at extreme programming and some of the things like Saurav mentioned in terms of automated tests and so on, so that you can test quickly and often. So we can take it offline. There was another question from there.
So Srinivas,
Yeah.
we have run
Okay,
short
we're
on
done.
time.
Okay.
We'll
All
take
right.
the question.
Okay, so I will be disappearing for an hour, but then I'll be around so people can ask me questions offline. That's fine.
And the panel discussion as well.
Yeah.
And the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
What's the situation of Agile in India in terms of adoption, in terms of maturity? So you will be provided with a survey form very soon. How many of you are using open source tools versus a paid up tool? So this is our attempt to identify the level of maturity Agile has reached in India. Many say Agile has been a decade long in India. Some say it's just started 3 years back. So there's a lot of opinion, and we are trying to capture. And if you are not able to, if you are new to Agile, if you don't know anything, do not fill in the survey form. It's not meant for everyone. So that's very clearly specified on top. So those who do not have will be getting the survey form soon. It will take 5-10 minutes. I have included this in my talk, so for 15 minutes. So can you start filling in those surveys, please? Yes. Just hold on. Those who have can start it. We are getting the survey forms. Asking for any names, that is an optional. No company. Feel free to share your opinion. And the result of the survey will be made available. We'll be sending it to Scrum Alliance, Agile Alliance, Scrum.org, and all the 16 founders of Agile Manifesto. This is how, and we are doing it across all cities in India. And we will be coming up with a collection of 1,000 opinions of those who attended our conference, 200 opinions of those who attended our workshops, and 4,000 opinions of those who attended our Agile Olympiad. So the size will be 7,000, the biggest that has ever happened in India. There's not been any survey that has been conducted on using 7,000 Agile practitioners. The best of the best conferences get only 1,000 or 1,200. So this survey will get the real picture of Agile in India. So it covers a lot of topic: tools, training, process, adoption, senior management, behavior, everything. Do not write your name. And there's another suggestion. In case you are asked to give your personal information, personal data by any one of the sponsors or anyone, do it, but do it carefully. Do not give personal information, in conferences, but give for whoever who you need. Otherwise, you will be spammed. So whenever you're giving information, we have a policy that we have a very strict data sharing policy. Most of our sponsors ask us whether we can share the list of delegates and their information. We refuse. We don't get many sponsors, by the way. We had only 2 sponsors, Scrum Alliance and Agile Testing Alliance. And most of the other companies, they want the list. We strictly have a no-share policy. We will not give the email IDs, phone numbers, designation, the company name, and your full name to anyone. We have the survey form now. Can you raise your hand? It will be given to you. Yeah, once you have completed, keep it with you. Keep it with you for a moment, please. We'll come and collect. We are just distributing to those who don't have. Do we have a survey form, more survey form? Can we get it from the back? Okay. So has everyone filled in? Okay, so I do understand that we have few survey shots which are in the other hall. We'll try to bring it here. So kindly be here, those who have not filled the survey. Those who have filled the survey, Manish will come around and he will collect. And I'll come around and I'll collect. So once you are done with it, anyone here? So once you are done, you can go for tea and coffee break. So there are 2 areas. One is the pre-function area here, and the other one is happening in the hall. So you can go for tea and coffee at any of those 2 places. Thank you.
Able to hear me? Okay. We have some technical difficulty here, so I'll stay close to the laptop. So my name is Venkat. I'm from a company called CollabNet. And CollabNet is a product development company. And I'm going to share some of the experience we have in DevOps space and as well as Agile. So the topic is about journey of DevOps. That's how I started. And then my kid was seeing me, doing this presentation, creating the presentation. She was asking me, what is the journey of DevOps? What is Dev and what is Ops? Then I was explaining to her, like Agile is a whole world. And once you go deeper into Agile, you see another world called DevOps. Then,
Excuse me.
yes?
Can it be a little louder, please? Little louder sound.
So, oh, it's too loud. So my kid said, okay, you have Agile as a world, and then DevOps is another world. Then you should have named it as Journey to the Center of DevOps, because that's based out of a movie, Journey to the Center of the Earth. I don't know whether you guys have seen the movie or not. Okay. So that's how the topic and the title came up, Journey to the Center of DevOps. So I'm going to explain few things that we practice in CollabNet in our product development. We have products for application lifecycle management products, and we also have products for provisioning and release automation products. So let's start with the presentation. So this is just an overview. Just going to describe, why you need a DevOps, and what is industry statistics, what people talk about DevOps in the industry, And then orchestrate DevOps, where we deep dive into some of the practices that's done in CollabNet. And then what are the tools and workflows that are available that can help you enable DevOps at your workplace. And then just a small illustration of a graphical DevOps environment where you can understand the whole concept from beginning to end through one slide, graphical slide, and one of the customer case study. Okay. Can someone in the audience, tell me why you need a DevOps before I go further? Okay. Okay, that's a good answer. And there are several things where people get into DevOps. I just have the first one is whenever development is done and it takes a while to deploy into your production environment because things were not tested right from the beginning in your production environment. So that's a small thing that gives you a hint that Dev and Ops are not working together. And some of the things where product gets developed or your application gets developed, and once it goes to production, somebody finds out that on the day of production or 2 days before, that there is a compliance risk where we cannot deploy. We have to fix the security vulnerability, or we have to upgrade our OS. Things like that comes up during the end of the release. The other things are there's no standard process to deploy. That also again leads to your failure, where Dev and Ops are not talking to each other well. So there's always been a challenge between Dev and Ops. And the last one is DevOps finger pointing, where once Ops takes over the product or your code, they try to deploy into a production environment and they say, it's not working. But the devs say, it's working. Look at my dev box, it's working. Look at my Q environment, it's working. Because the environments are different. So last thing is, people typically, you involve Ops at the end of the release, where maybe 2 weeks before. Until then, they just work in their own agile way, and then they develop the product. It works in dev test, maybe even up to staging. It doesn't work in your production environment. So let's see what industry talks about. There was a survey done between all developers, agile coaches, and this kind of statistics that talks about where the failure happens in production. But most of the people think in the industry that software quality is the highest because maybe most of the ops people would have marked as software quality as the highest failure in production, and vice versa, where developers would have said most of the failures are happening in release issues or dependencies, things like that. Let's see what Forrester talks about. Forrester has done a survey, this is from 2013, where human configuration errors are 40% of the deployment failures in production. And next comes the software quality. So this is like an independent survey, which gives us an idea where majority of the issues are in human configuration errors. So based on this, you will very well understand that we have to involve ops from the beginning of our sprint, all the way from story, sprint planning to all the way till deployment. So let's see what Agile Manifest, which was even covered by Srinivas a little bit. Agile Manifest talks about two things: continuous delivery, and then next one is working software very frequently and in a shorter span of time. So these are two things that DevOps can address as part of Agile. So as I mentioned, one of the key things that can be done is Ops. Are they a stakeholder? Many companies don't use Ops as a stakeholder. They have business stakeholders, customers as a stakeholder, but Ops are at the tail end. So in our case, we have included Ops all the way from beginning of our product development. And this enables us to deliver faster, sprint over sprint, and we have very small lag time between the time our last sprint finishes and time we go live. So let's look at few things. what are the four, I just identified 4 important things that can make a successful DevOps story for you. First one is DevOps culture, where there's always a wall between ops and dev, and there's a finger pointing going on, and ops doesn't know what dev is developing, and then dev doesn't know production environment. So that's one of the key culture change has to happen. Next one is streamline SDLC from planning to deployment. What this means is, in your process, typically, you have agile sprint meetings, you have product, finally you end up with a deliverable, but there is no traceability, and then the process is not streamlined all the way till your deployment. So you may have many releases, many deployments, but there's no traceability from end to end, from story to your final deployment. So that's streamline SDLC. Visibility through the release and deploy pipeline. This is again, very similar, where this talks about, traceability and visibility, where you have DevOps dashboard. Typically, people show burn down charts and then velocity, as Srinivas mentioned, and nobody covers about DevOps dashboard. The last one is implementation automation. Obviously, we have to depend on some of the tools, because many of these things cannot be done humanly possible, where you want to deploy some code across 50 servers, all in a matter of 20 minutes, because it's clustered, globally deployed. So those things cannot be done manually. So you need to rely on tools and automation. So I'm going to dive deep into all these 4 topics. And mostly I'm going to focus on streamline SDLC and tools and workflow. So let's talk about culture. So developers always want agility. So they have so many challenges these days, where as a developer, you have to develop your product into multiple platforms. You have to support Android, you have to support iPad, you have to support Windows, you have to support Linux. As a product development, they have so many challenges, so they have to focus on those. And then the other challenges are, nowadays we start integrating with many things. Maybe if you're in Flipkart, you may be integrating with PayPal and Visa, Master. So there's so many things that happen. So you integrate and you do that in dev and QA, but there are challenges there. It doesn't work in production. So those are things which ops does